You ever pull into your own driveway thinking you're just going to haul out a mop and a box of old photo albums only to have your entire reality flipped upside down by a woman with a ruler? That's exactly how my week started. I'm not kidding. One minute, I'm minding my business, keys in hand, still smelling the stale fast food wrappers in my beat-up SUV, and the next, I'm the target of the most psychotic HOA president America's ever coughed up. Victoria Crane, picture a power-walking Karen with cat-eye glasses, a blazer so crisp it'd cut your finger, and a blonde bob sharp enough to slice cheese, appears out of nowhere, all but rising from the rose bushes, wielding a laser measuring tool like it's the sword in the stone. I hadn't even killed the engine before she's out there measuring my grass, shrieking across the cul-de-sac 5.1 inches. That's a violation. She wasn't just talking grass either. Apparently, I was also guilty of excessive bird noise and environmental trespass. She dials 911 with a flourish and starts writing me up for $500 like she gets paid by the ticket. I wanted to laugh, but there was something chilling about the way she ran down her checklist. She knew my name, my grandmother's name, rattled off my address like she'd been practicing for this moment all her life. Grandma Eleanor. God rest her, always said to keep the place safe. That woman kept memories. Like most people keep houseplants tenderly, fiercely, always worried about who might stomp them out. That was her last advice. Protect it, Marcus. Don't let them take it from you. Anyway, Officer Rodriguez shows up looking like he'd just run a marathon through a minefield of HOA complaints. Mrs. Crane, this is the third time this week. He sighs, barely glancing at me. I hold out my paperwork, inheritance deed, all above board. Victoria's not impressed. She's already moved on to accusing me of mailbox tilting 2.1 degrees off apparently and aggressive breathing patterns that violate community noise ordinances. I kid you not, she's snapping photos, rulers pressed against tires, logging GPS coordinates for my car's distance from the curb. It was surreal. Rodriguez just gives me that look like, buckle up, pal, this one's a ride. I'm thinking, okay, maybe if I just stay calm, keep it light, I can make this go away. Look, I'm just cleaning out my grandma's house, I tell her, but she's measuring the decibel level of my voice with her phone, announcing it's 15% over the legal limit for residential conversation. You can't make this up. That's when I pop my trunk, start unloading boxes, old tax returns, cleaning supplies, knickknacks from Eleanor's era, normal estate stuff. Except for one box. This heavy, rattling wooden box Eleanor had specifically mentioned in her will. Victoria goes dead silent. All her bluster gone in a second like someone yanked the batteries out. Her face drains of color. She's staring at that box like she's seen a ghost. When I crack it open, my hands shake. Inside keys. Not just one or two, a pile. Each with a tag and address and the word removed, all in Victoria's handwriting. And these weren't just random keys. They matched every family that had mysteriously moved away these last few years. The Martinez family, the Johnsons, the Rodriguezes. Along with the keys, there were bits of jewelry, family photos, toys, even notes in Victoria's unmistakable script. Target acquired, Phase 1 complete resistance eliminated. But the one that made my blood freeze was a folder labeled Future Removals. My grandma's address was crossed out in red. Mine was right below. Victoria tries to snatch the box, muttering, "That's not... Where did you get that?" But Rodriguez steps between us, suddenly all business. "Ma'am, please step back." She's stammering now, denying everything, claiming it's just old maintenance records, but even she doesn't believe it. For the first time, the woman isn't measuring anything. She's just scared. Rodriguez calls for backup. Victoria flees in her golf cart, fully decked out with a megaphone and what looks like a mobile measuring station. But what I found in that box wasn't just keys. It was proof of something so much darker. The question wasn't what Victoria took. It was what happened to the folks who fought back. The next morning, I wake to find a stack of violation notices jammed under my door. Every one more absurd than the last grass 2 green doormat off-center by 0.3 inches excessive breathing during morning jogs. At this point, it's comical, except it's not. I called David, my old college buddy, who's a cybersecurity guy. If anyone can make sense of this mess, it's him. He comes over, we lay everything out on the kitchen table, start piecing together the real story. That's when Victoria rolls up in her Karen Mobile golf cart with a 360-degree camera and a full-on lab of measuring gadgets. She parks right at my property line, megaphone blaring. Subject under surveillance for community safety violations. You ever feel like you're living in a bad reality show run by a dictator obsessed with right angles? That's where I was. As we dig, David and I find patterns, fake violations stamped with homemade seals, a campaign of harassment so systematic it would make a military strategist jealous. Each targeted family faced escalating nitpicks, mental breakdowns, and finally eviction. And Victoria collected their keys and keepsakes like trophies. But the twist, buried in the box, was a notebook. A manual for psychological warfare phases and metrics instructions for spreading rumors, filing IRS audits, even manipulating credit scores. The Martinez family lasted 6 months, the Johnsons 8, the Rodriguezes only 4 because their kids couldn't handle the stress. One entry is blacked out, final solution required. Next to it, my grandmother's name. Eleanor hadn't just been a victim. She'd been fighting Victoria, collecting evidence, building a case, and she'd paid the price. That night, my elderly neighbor Benjamin Turner knocks, voice trembling. I watched her destroy family after family, he whispers. It was never about standards, Marcus. It was about control. Families didn't just move, they ran, leaving behind everything. And every time Victoria scooped up the keys. Benjamin gives me a letter from Eleanor written 2 weeks before she died. She spells it out. Victoria's a sociopath, systematically driving out families. The box is evidence. Don't let her get away with it. David's analysis goes deeper. Surveillance photos, medical records, every detail of Eleanor's life cataloged by Victoria. The harassment wasn't random. Victoria stalked my grandmother, tracked her every move, waiting for the perfect moment to cut her off. When I show Benjamin the evidence, he goes pale. Your grandmother called me the night before she died. She said she'd figured out Victoria's endgame. She was going to the police in the morning. She never made it. Then we see the bigger picture. Every family forced out, sold for below market value. Houses flipped for profit. New neighbors never hassled. It wasn't about rules. It was about money, systematic gentrification by harassment. And those natural deaths in the records all happened after months of targeted abuse. Heart attacks, strokes, murders, plain and simple, covered up with paperwork. The final punch in the gut, a hidden audio recording. Victoria, her voice cold, discussing final solutions with someone else, someone whose voice is masked. Make it clean. Make it look natural. Let everyone know what happens when they interfere. Eleanor's death wasn't just collateral damage. It was a warning. I bring all this to the emergency HOA meeting Victoria calls to expose me. She's ready with charts, photos, even bogus psychiatric files painting me as a menace. She wants to see me arrested, silenced, erased. But I come armed with the real evidence, photos of her trophy collection documents, security footage of her labeling keys. The room goes silent as residents recognize their neighbors' addresses, their own keys in the pile. Victoria cracks, screams, swinging her measuring tape, ranting about perfect community standards and weak families. She tries to flee but trips, scattering rulers and tapes across the floor. Officer Rodriguez cuffs her as she shrieks a name that brings the entire room to a standstill. Benjamin. Yeah, you heard that right. The kindly old neighbor, the one who handed me Eleanor's letter and promised to testify, is the real mastermind. He'd been the one whispering through the voice modulator, orchestrating the gentrification scheme, targeting families with inside info, flipping houses through shell companies. Victoria was just his attack dog. The arrests are swift. Feds sweep in, uncover a network stretching across states, dozens of neighborhoods, hundreds of families destroyed. Our little community becomes a national headline. The HOA is gutted, all fines voided, transparency rules rewritten. Families return, real community starts to grow, and the rulers go up in flames at a public bonfire. But here's the kicker. 6 months later, I'm at a barbecue, cold beer in hand, admiring my perfectly mowed regulation height lawn. And the new HOA president, she's got a measuring tape for a belt and a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. Some obsessions never die. They just find a new host. So what's the real moral stand up to the bullies, because the secrets hiding behind perfect lawns and picket fences might be a whole lot darker than you ever imagined. And hey, if this story got your blood boiling, drop a comment. What's the wildest thing you've seen an HOA do? And do you really think justice ever measures up in the end?